ask a bunch of questions. Because as a lawyer, I need deniability. But y'all crazy as hell. If you think for a minute, you're not going to have to explain this. And you really crazy if you think that our lifelong friendship is going to stop me from killing you if something happened to my man. This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Genesis, bonus episode 4, part 1. When we left off, the pot was brewing, and there was a whole lot of stirring going on. When Q finished breaking the news to Miss Charlotte and Big Wood that Big Dro had been killed by the Cato organization, Wood was sad. He was sorry that he didn't have more time with his father, but he was more concerned with revenge. He needed to know exactly how the Cato organization and the international trafficking organizations would pay for his father's death. In Colombia, Zyla had the very same question. Her baby father may not have been much to write home about, but she was a daddy's girl, through and through. I personally know something about that. Hey, Daddy, I love you. Now, her father may not have been the best father in the world, like mine, but he was hers, and somebody was gonna pay. Zyla was at the very beginning of her training to replace her big cousin Alejandro as the head of the Garcia family, but she wanted in on whatever the plan was. And in Puerto Rico, when Samuel broke the news to Zora, it was a good thing that Lorenzo was right there, because baby girl was heartbroken. She wasn't as much of a daddy's girl as her big sister Zyla was, but losing both of the men in her family, the men in her life, who loved her more than anybody else in the world, left her feeling like she had a boulder sitting on her chest. While Lorenzo wasn't all that good with emotional situations, his presence and support was priceless. He said, Zora, whatever you need, baby, I got you. And Samuel said, Zora, I know that I'm not your father. I could never replace Big Drum. But if you let me, I want to love you like my own daughter. I'd love for you to see my presence in your life, in your family, as another opportunity for you to have the love of a father. Your mother did a tremendous job raising the three of you. So the raising is already done. But every woman needs and deserves the authentic, unconditional love of a father. And I don't have to be your father to give you that. You just have to be willing to receive it. And Zora collapsed in Samuel's arms, because all of that was music to her ears. Nah, Samuel couldn't replace Big Dro, but he could certainly walk her down the aisle if Lorenzo ever decided to pop the question. Now, the secret was, Lorenzo did plan to pop the question. He'd actually had a conversation with Big Dro before he passed. He'd also had one with Miss Charlotte and Samuel. He'd even had one with Q, who'd quickly become the go-to person in all the families in his father's stead. As soon as things calmed and settled down, Lorenzo would be asking the question with probably the biggest ring Zora had ever seen. And she may not have needed all that, but Lorenzo did. He needed and wanted to give her an experience that was as normal as possible. His mind, an extravagant plan, would give Zora something to look forward to and make it more likely that she would say yes. Little did he know she didn't need none of that. She'd gone all these years without a boyfriend, and she was sure that Lorenzo would be everything she needed in a husband. So she was ready to get to the good part. Also in Puerto Rico, Corey was having a hard time with his new church staff. Several of them were none too happy with the changes that he made, or the changes that were pending. The first Sunday service at the Puerto Rican Convention Center had gone off without a hitch, and the general assigned to ensuring Corey and Stephanie's safety, with Corey as the new pastor of the church in Puerto Rico, had done a stellar job of ensuring that his security was airtight. The issue he was dealing with now was one of the staff members that he was going to have to let go had the most seniority on the team, played multiple roles in the church organization, including management of the office staff, being the head of his armor bearers, and the supervisor for all programs. And while he was actually the youngest person on the team at 40-something, he was highly respected and a go-to source for all church-related information and activities. So him balking at the changes resulted in lots of the church members also balking at the changes. For a church administrator, he sure managed to kick up a whole lot of dust. The last thing a pastor needed was an ish-stirrer as the head of the administration team. He'd been there and done that with Deacon Sinclair Davis, and we all know how that turned out. So when Corey and Rodrigo, the head of the administration team, sat down for their last and final meeting, Corey said, talk to me. Explain to me what your issue is. Not what you've been telling everybody, shouting from the mountaintops for anybody who's willing to listen, but the real underlying issue. And Rodrigo said, you're my issue. When the board voted to install you as the pastor here, Corey cut him off and said, this church doesn't have a board. Rodrigo said, the leaders of the church. You know what I mean. When we voted to install you, we understood that there would be changes. There are always changes when there's new leadership. But we expected that the changes would be gradual. We expected that we would have some say-so in those changes because this is our church. We expected that you would get in where you fit in. Take time to get to know the church, the members, our programs, how we do things here. I know I personally expected for you to ease into the changes. And really, I expected you to do more for the church before you started doing things to the church. Corey said, I think all of that's reasonable. My issue isn't your discontent. It's the way in which you've chosen to express that discontent. You're in a position of authority, but you clearly have an issue with authority. Tell me something. When you had an issue that you needed to communicate to your previous pastor, did you have conversations with any and everybody else first? Or did you go to him first? Rodrigo said, I went to you first. I raised these concerns in that meeting when you told us about all these changes, and you shut me down. My old pastor didn't do that. He actually listened. He considered what we said. Pastor Corey said, and then what? Rodrigo said he made adjustments to ensure that everybody was happy with whatever it was that he was going to do. He also was available 24/7. We could call him at any time to discuss any of the concerns that we might have, so we could discuss it privately. Corey said, so you're used to having your pastor's ear, having carte blanche access to the man that God anointed for this position. Rodrigo said, yes. Pastor Corey cut him off and said, that question was rhetorical. I'm sure you've read my resume. That means that you know that I retired from the FBI. At the time of my retirement, I was a supervising agent with a team of 27. That entire time, I was also in ministry. For the past 15 years, I was the pastor of a church with over 5,000 members. A church that was one of the lead institutions in an international religious organization. I didn't get to where I was in either of those positions by displaying poor leadership or a failure to consider others' perspectives, positions, and ideas. I was actually pretty effective at both. There's a delicate balance between being the decision maker and being a collaborator. And both of those positions required that I expertly walk that tightrope. But either way, I've always had to make hard decisions. And when the rubber met the road, I was the only one responsible for standing on those decisions. While they may have affected a number of individuals, I worked for the feds. Those decisions affected more than a number of individuals. I made decisions that affected whether people lived, died, or spent the rest of their lives in a federal prison. I didn't take that responsibility lightly. And while I was the HNIC and the buck stopped with me, I still had to answer to a higher authority. Whatever I decided, right, wrong, or indifferent, I had to be able to answer for it. In many cases, I had a puppeteer. And ultimately, there were others who outranked me, who were pulling the strings. If I had the time, I could teach you a whole lot about being in a position of authority, also submitting to higher authority. But not only do I not have the time, I'm not interested. Your previous pastor left me with a situation. Several situations, actually. Situations that I'm responsible for resolving. So I need competent, professional, emotionally mature individuals who are already well-versed in leading while submitting. In your position and in the other positions of leadership across this church. Because my experience as a pastor has taught me. I'm the leader here, but I'm still not the head. And that means I'll have to make a lot of decisions that aren't going to be that popular. But in this environment, the puppeteer that I'm taking marching orders from is the only one who gets to decide what the plans are, what I do or don't do, how I show up as this church's pastor, and who stays and who goes. And at the conclusion of this meeting, you go. Several days later, Angela and LJ were sitting down to have a conversation. There were some plans that they had in play that they needed to discuss. While neither of them had ever intended on entering into the life, LJ had spent a whole lot of years protecting Angela. He was the first person in her world to find out that she was a member of the Lopez family. And at an early age, he understood what that meant. Angela's only uncle, Emmanuel Lopez, had sought LJ out and made it clear to him that if Angela wasn't safe, wasn't nobody safe. And that was a motto that had carried Angela and LJ's friendship from what you owe me to now. Angela and LJ were more like brother and sister. And the trio that had been LJ, Angela, and Regina since they were 5 or 6 years old had become a quad when Angela and Q fell in love. The couples were absolutely inseparable. And while we haven't heard a whole lot about LJ and Regina this season, they'd been going strong. Surviving cancer for the second time had given LJ a whole new perspective and lease on life. And while he didn't feel like he was invincible, surviving stage 4 prostate cancer, the same cancer that killed his father, as a result of the nearly $1 million investment made by Emmanuel Lopez, had LJ feeling like there was no better situation, reason, or person to risk his life for. Not only did he feel like he owed Manny, but he felt like he owed Angela, Q, and their children to continue keeping her safe by being her right-hand man. And for Angela's part, she was doing everything in her power to ensure as best as she could that neither her nor LJ found themselves in precarious, dangerous, and penitentiary-worthy situations. To date, they've been focusing their efforts on keeping True out of harm's way, rebuilding and reorganizing the five families. Angela was absolutely true to form at that roundtable meeting when she said that the children of the family would inherit whatever decisions they made, and the five families needed to grow with the times, expand their legitimate business options, and create lanes for the next generations to seamlessly slide in positions that weren't tainted by the sins of their fathers or their mothers. If Stephanie wanted to be the queen pin of the Lopez organization, she could absolutely have it. When she got it, she'd be inheriting an organization that was better for Angela's touch. Angela wanted nothing more than for her and Q to be out of her life. They had 5 children and 2 more on the way, and something was telling her that she did not have much time left. She'd already made it to 34 weeks, and if she got any closer to her due date, she was going to need a tow truck to move her from point A to point B, because she was no longer walking. She was rolling everywhere she went. She'd been in nesting mode, but she didn't even have the physical capabilities to do that. So she'd been bossing her husband and children around. Clean this, put this together, reorganize that. And for Q's part, he was going down his honey-do list like it was nothing. Being smack dab in the middle of a war with the International Trafficking Organization had not stopped him from being the husband and father that he was. As a matter of fact, Angela and LJ needed to wrap up this little meeting because Q had plans to remind his wife why he was the best to ever do it. So LJ said, "Shawty, listen, everything is going to be fine tomorrow. That stupid doll was delivered a couple of hours ago, and that thing has a freakish resemblance to Isla. Please tell me that we're getting rid of it when this is all over." Angela chuckled and said, "Those dolls look so real, don't they?" LJ said, "Absolutely. Did you ever have a chance to talk with Chantal about being the family's chaplain?" Angela and LJ had discussed the possibility of creating an avenue by which Chantal could use her enthusiasm for Christ to help the families instead of judging the family's members. Chantal and Corey had created an ongoing relationship after the triplets had their little wilderness experience. When he told her the truth about her pastor, he'd walked her through the healing process that was required to keep her from turning away from Christ as a result of finding out that the man she nearly idolized was certainly not who she thought he was. And Corey's efforts had been successful. Thus far, though, he'd had no luck with moving the needle on Chantal's holier-than-thou, prideful, judgmental version of being a follower of Christ. And that would absolutely have to happen in order for Chantal to serve in the role that Angela had been considering. While the families were involved in illegal and immoral activities, every one of them still needed God. And while we all know that God don't bless no mess, their relationships with Christ were the reason why many of the heads didn't engage in worse activities. So Angela said, "It isn't something I had time to discuss with her as of yet, but she has agreed to be my nursemaid when these babies come. So I should have plenty of time to bend her ear and for God to bend her heart." Their conversation continued, and right before they could wrap it up, there was a knock at the door. They were inside Angela's study at her and Q's house. So when she said, "Come in," she expected that it would be Q, because the children knew not to come knocking. She was pleasantly surprised when Regina walked in. The pleasantness quickly wore off when Regina said, "Let me tell you something, Angela. I worked too damn hard to keep this man alive. You know how I get down. I'm with whatever. I'm on whatever you on. And I rock with you the long way. Always have and always will, unless and until your little shenanigans that you got going on put my husband's life and freedom on the line." Now, I went in my basement to put these kids' winter stuff away and damn near had a heart attack. And the relief of realizing that Isla was not laying on the floor in my basement did not help the heart palpitations. Now, I don't ask a bunch of questions, because as a lawyer, I need deniability. But y'all crazy as hell. If you think for a minute, you're not going to have to explain this. And you really crazy if you think that our lifelong friendship is going to stop me from killing you if something happened to my man. Right string, wrong damn yo-yo. You understand? Angela said, "Okay, so listen, right?" Then she filled Regina in on the plan with Miss Bernie for the following day. And Regina said, "Oh, y'all crazy as hell. If you don't think that old lady is going to create a situation where she got to bust her gun, you stupid. She's arranged to meet with the woman who violated her at the Blues Lounge under the guise of hand-delivering her your deaf daughter. Oh, yeah, it's up and stuck." Angela said, "You don't understand. They put a monitor on her ankle." Regina said, "Oh, I understand. I also understand that wasn't the first thing that she said when she walked into the house. This little plan y'all concocted, y'all ain't concocted. Miss Bernie manipulated the hell out of y'all. and we gonna be having a damn funeral because her old behind can't run. And LJ, don't even think about it. LJ said, don't think about what? Regina said, don't think about showing up at that meetup. Operation Reborn gonna end up with you re-dead because I'ma kill you. Get somebody else to do it. Now let's go home. Angela said, best friend, we are in the middle of a meeting. Regina said, oh, this damn meeting is over with. When I came in downstairs, all the lights was out. It was candles lit. Wasn't a kid in sight. You sitting there looking like a stuffed turkey that's about to bust. And your husband downstairs looking like he ready for his last hurrah. He also looked like he ain't been getting none because he was none too pleased to see me at his doorstep. So yeah, I'm taking my husband home. Then she dug in her purse and took out a tube of Great Head by Pure Romance and said, and I know your gag reflex is all over the place because you're pregnant, but that man looked like he ready to be swallowed up. So use this. And then she handed her the tube of Great Head and said, it'll suppress your gag reflex. Angela said, best friend, why are you walking around with this in your purse? Regina said, oh, because you never know when you got to drop down and get your ego on. And LJ's chocolate skin somehow managed to turn red. Angela said, way too much information. Regina said, nigga, we grown. LJ, let's go. I got another tube at the house. LJ said, that's one way to end the damn meeting. Then he got up, kissed Angela on the forehead, and said, we'll talk tomorrow. And walked out of the room with his crazy wife. When they got downstairs, Regina looked at Q and said, so we gonna get out your hair. Make sure you call me tomorrow and say thank you. Q was so confused, but he knew Regina, so he knew she'd done something. He went up the stairs, and there was Angela, sitting in her study, still laughing hysterically at her best friend's shenanigans. He said, do I want to know? Angela said, absolutely not. But you about to find out. Come here. Let me holler at you for a second. I want talking to the mic. And Q cleared the room because his wife was not threatening him with a good time. He helped her down the stairs and said, I'm going to get some men over here tomorrow to switch this all around. Move my study upstairs and yours downstairs. Because I don't think you're going to be able to do these stairs much longer, love. When they got downstairs, just like Regina said, the whole downstairs was decorated for a romantic evening. There were candles and rose petals. Soft music was playing in the guest bedroom that Q had painstakingly prepared for he and Angela to use with the new twins when they were born so that she wouldn't have to traipse up and down the stairs. He'd prepared the attached bathroom for one of his signature date night at home sessions. The tub was filled with water as hot as Angela could stand and allowed with her pregnancy. And he'd laid out all of the items in the date night collection that he'd worked with her staff over at Vibrantly You to create just for her when she was pregnant with their first set of twins. That collection had been a showstopper for Vibrantly You because while Q's original intent was to create a scent just for Angela, the pheromone-enhanced scent had every single one of the employees and everybody in the family chopping at the bits to get their hands on it. So Angela had convinced Q to allow her to commercialize it. Thankfully, pheromone-enhanced products smell different on every single person who uses it. So while half the country was walking around smelling like date night, there wasn't another person in the world who smelled like his wife. And that was just how he liked it. So after helping Angela disrobe, he helped her step in and sink down in the sunken garden tub, pinned her hair up, wrapped one of her Vibrantly You headbands around her edges, and slowly, methodically, and sensually gave his wife one of the best baths of her life, while he fed her the mangoes and strawberries that he'd already had prepared on the bathside table. As she sipped her mineral water and enjoyed the ministrations of her husband, she said, so when I get out of this tub, before you do anything else to me, there is something I absolutely need to do for you. You've been working hard. I see your efforts. You've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And while you've attempted to appear unaffected by that absolute fiasco that went down at the kids' school, and now this whole plan with Miss Bernie tomorrow, I know there's no way that you're not on the edge. I love how you take care of me, but I love taking care of you more. Q said, and I love how you take care of me, love. But this night is about you. When you get what I'm going to give you, I'm going to get what I need. I don't know what the hell you and Regina up to, but if whatever you got planned is going to actually have me call that woman tomorrow and thank her, I don't know if I want you to do that. I'm getting old, love. I might not be able to finish. Angela said, oh, nigga, you going to finish. Just let me get you right first. 20 minutes later, when Q helped Angela out of the tub, she felt the first telltale signs that labor was impending. She clenched her jaw and didn't say a word because both she and her husband needed this night. And she was praying more than anything the labor would hold off, at least until Operation Reborn the following day. Q laid Angela down on the bed and grabbed the date night massage oil. He gently and methodically rubbed the oil all over Angela's body, avoiding the pressure points in her feet that he knew had the potential to send her into labor. Little did he know, she was already going in that direction. Angela laid there, enjoying the touch of her husband and the combination of deep and sensual massage. And when she was all oiled up and rubbed down, she told Q, "Hand me those pants that you took off of me." When he did, she went in the pocket, pulled out a tube that he didn't recognize, squeezed a hefty dollop of the cinnamon-flavored great head onto her finger, and then put her finger into the back of her throat. Then she slid to the edge of the bed, put her legs over the side, and said, "Come stand right here." The raised bed and Q's height positioned his manhood right at mouth level. When Angela slowly began to take his manhood in, Q's eyes got wide when she took in more than she'd ever taken in before, and did not gag. And as Angela did what she did better than any woman who'd ever done it to Q before, because she'd had time to learn and earn her man, Q thought to himself, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be making that phone call."
He's 6'3" and brown skin, smooth with the stride. Got that slow confidence, don't gotta try.